Ball chasing. When a player relentlessly pursues the ball, hitting it as much and as often as possible, regardless of the situation or where they are located on the pitch. Examples: he is so dumb, all he does is ball chase. Ball chasing is a stupid strategy and doesn't work. Or does it? It's a pretty popular opinion across the Rocket League community that ball chasing is a terrible strategy and that you're a bad player if you do it. On the other hand, it really can be effective at catching your opponents off guard. So should you ball chase? I decided to play 50 games of 1v1s only ball chasing to find out. Here was my game plan. Step 1. The control. I wanted to play 5 games normally so that I have a sample of games to compare my ball chasing games to. This way it'll be easy to see if there's any notable changes to my games when I'm ball chasing versus not ball chasing. Step 2. The grind. I'd play 50 games only ball chasing. No shadowing, no fake challenging, only ball chasing. Step 3. The results. Once I finished all my games, it was time to upload all of the replays to calculated.gg and analyze the games to see if there's any benefit to ball chasing. Just so you can understand the frame of reference for all of the ball chasing games, here are how my 5 normal games went. Out of my 5 games, I won 4 of them and only lost 1, which was pretty neat. I scored an average of 5.4 goals per game and gave up an average of 3.8 goals per game. I also climbed up about 50 MMR, going from Champ 3 all the way up to Grand Champ 2. I separated the 50 games into groups of 10 to make it a little easier to analyze, and the first 10 games were pretty back and forth. I felt like I was catching my opponents off guard a lot and scoring more goals, but I also ended up overcommitting a lot and giving up more goals at the same time. I ended up winning 6 of the games and dropping the other 4. And just like I thought, I scored an average of 6.2 goals per game, but I gave up 4.9 goals per game. So even though I got more goals, I got scored on more as well. After the first 10 games, I was still ranked Grand Champ 2, which isn't surprising since I went pretty much even. Games 11 through 20 were a nightmare. I was constantly getting punished for overcommitting. I felt like everyone I played knew how to perfectly counter my ball chasing strategy. I only won 1 of my 10 games and I dropped the other 9. I still scored more goals than normal, putting up 6.1 per game, but I gave up almost 8 goals every game. As expected, I dropped quite a bit, going from Grand Champ 2 all the way down to Grand Champ 1, but I was only 1 game away from getting demoted to Champ 3. I needed to turn this series around if I didn't want to absolutely tank my rank. And I did. The next 10 games were complete turnaround. My opponents couldn't adapt to my ball chasing, and I had a lot of goals that came from catching them off guard. I won 8 of the 10 games and lost the other 2. Pretty similarly to the previous games, I scored an average of 5.9 goals per game, but I only gave up an average of 4.8 per game. Although this is relatively low, it's still higher than when I played my normal 1v1 games. Since I obviously won more games, I went from low Grand Champ 1 all the way up to mid Grand Champ 2. The last 20 games were extraordinarily ordinary. I went completely even, winning 10 of the games and dropping the other 10. I scored an average of 5.8 goals per game, which is slightly higher than my normal games, and I gave up an average of 4.3 per game, half a goal higher than the normal games. Since I went 10 and 10, my rank didn't change, and I was still placed at Grand Champ 2 at the end of the 50 games. If you didn't understand any of the stats I threw at you, or if you just skipped to this point of the video to hear the overall results, here's what you can take away from my experiment. Across all 50 games, I scored an average of exactly 6 goals, which is slightly higher than the games I scored in my normal games. But across all the games, I gave up an average of 5.5 goals, which is significantly higher than the goals that I gave up when playing normally. In simple terms, if you only ball chase, you can expect to get scored on a lot more than normal, and if your games turn out like mine, you don't score enough goals to make it worth it. So overall, only ball chasing all the time is probably not the most effective strategy when playing 1v1s. That being said, there were still numerous times where I caught my opponent off guard by challenging earlier than they thought I would. So there is a time and a place for it, but you don't want to become too predictable with your playstyle. I hope you guys enjoyed this little experiment. If you did, let me know down in the comments what experiment you want to see me do next. And if you have any thoughts or you think I missed anything, let me know on my Twitch. I stream every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night. I'll put the link down in the description below so you guys can check that out. That's all I got for you guys. I hope you know that Jesus loves you, and so do I. I'll see you in the next one.